Being in the flow of consistently making art helps us to hone our art style and our unique voice as artists. But most of all, being in a flow of consistency in your art practice is just about as much fun as you can have with your clothes on. Before we get into it, hello, my name's Farrell. I'm an intuitive artist and I've spent just about the last 10 years making art and struggling with consistency. I know firsthand how the lack of consistency in your art practice can feel like a stick in the bicycle wheel of your progress as an artist. So in this video, I want to share with you something that really helps me when I feel stuck, and I hope it'll help you too. So first, let's talk a little bit about consistency and what it requires of us as artists. To be consistent at something means we're giving it our time and energy. And whenever we give something our time and energy, it means that we're taking away that time and energy from something else in our lives. That means that whatever we want to be consistent at really matters to us, usually a lot, but at least more than something else currently in our lives. So, this thing of ours is important. We're putting our most precious resources, our time and energy, into this thing. And that can be scary. Instead of our time and energy going into something fleeting, we now are doing something that will result in something tangible being created. A physical manifestation of our inner world and a product of the time and energy we've spent on it. It can bring up all sorts of feelings of fear and self-doubt, because now we realize that we expect a reward for our efforts in the form of creating something good. We end up feeling all of this pressure, which is an absolute killer to the creative process and the rolling ball of consistency. Our doubts make us question, is this thing really that important? Why am I doing this if I'm not good at it? Or even, am I crazy or delusional to dream this dream? Am I just wasting my time? Maybe you've seen this pattern arise in your life time and time again. Maybe you wonder why you can create a few YouTube videos or make art for a little while and feel like you're on a roll, and then all of a sudden you just aren't doing it anymore. A week, a month, a year goes by. When you do this thing you're doing for the first time, or the first few times, those thoughts and doubts haven't had enough time to really back up and clog up and create this cork inside you that is stopping all of those creative juices. So at the beginning, everything feels really easy. But then those little thoughts and doubts inevitably start building up behind the scenes of your consciousness, or in full view of it to your dismay. And before you know it, you're back to overthinking and under-creating. I want to share with you some motivation through a couple of straightforward tips, but also through kind of a new way of looking at things, which, when combined, really helps me to get back on track with consistency in my own art practice. So these first two tips are plain, practical advice that you've probably heard before. And you might be thinking, well, if I could just sit down and do art like that, then I wouldn't be struggling with consistency. And I agree. You probably know this, and if you could be doing it, you would be doing it. But please stick around, as in a moment I share with you a mindset shift that has really helped me to actually do these practical steps more. I think it might really help you too. You've probably heard it before, but dedicating a small amount of time to art is one of the easiest ways to be more consistent. But to do that, you really need to have a clean, tidy area with your supplies always ready. It doesn't have to be a full art studio, but it could be a dedicated corner of the dining table or a tray that you have next to your bed. There should be nothing impeding you from sitting down and getting straight to work. In this small daily window, don't bite off more than you can chew or think too far ahead of yourself. Try to see it as a chance to be present with your artwork and chip away a small piece of it. Don't try to do too much. You can always extend that 10 or 15 minutes, but when you begin, have a small goal that you can accomplish within that 10 or 15 minute time frame. Anything else you then do after that is a bonus. Now, building on this, dedicate one day a week to a longer stretch of art making. A few hours or a whole day. Whatever time you can afford to give to your art. This session will be where you can really make progress and get in that flow state. Have a bigger goal for these sessions and take them seriously. Eat a healthy meal, have a coffee, snacks and water ready, and romanticize the fuck out of what you're doing. You are an artist and you're getting your shit done. You're making your magic right here, right now. These longer sessions are about commitment and meeting your goal of being more consistent, but they're also just about enjoying the energy, the joy, and feeling excited in your bones about making art. Put on your favorite music and make this weekly art session an enticing event you look forward to every week. Now, I'm guessing that you've probably already tried these things before and that it's not your first rodeo when it comes to the more practical plan side of being more consistent. And if you're anything like me, you've probably had varying levels of success with trying to implement steps like these. And your success might have been short, might have lasted a bit longer, but inevitably that consistency always seems to drop back off again. So instead of giving you another piece of practical advice that you probably already know and you may have already implemented, I want you to do something for me right now. Zoom out. I want you to think of your consistency like a cityscape. Are you looking at it with a magnifying glass, or are you standing in the penthouse of the tallest, fanciest building in town? Up close, you might be looking at dirty pavement, weeds, and trash. But from up high, you can see dazzling lights, the glow of the sunset off of buildings, and lush green parks dotting the landscape. Depending on which lens you're viewing yourself through, your mindset will be very different. Zoom out and look at your art making over the course of a month, a year, a few years, or even your whole life. So there were days, weeks, months, or maybe even years, with little art making activity going on. But I bet there's also days, weeks, months, and years where you were creating with the electric fervour of Picasso on steroids. You might think that you're not consistent at making art, but perhaps your consistency just can't be seen on such a minute, microscopic scale. You are a totally unique artist with a totally unique temperament, mood, and energy level. I encourage you to zoom out, look at the larger whole, the big picture of your ups and downs with consistency, and give yourself a much-deserved pat on the back at everything you have done so far. And then have a little think about how you can approach consistency with this new information you've just gained in mind. Seeing that you have in fact been amazing at being consistent during different times in your life, should reassure you that in fact you are the kind of person who is more than capable of being consistent and actually is capable of even more consistency should you want it. But you don't need to fit into anyone else's view of what is consistent or productive. You can create your own. Whether you implement small or large changes is up to you. And you can always change your mind about those changes whenever you like. So you've zoomed out and seen the landscape as a whole, and maybe you've seen that you're a person who creates in hectic bursts for a few weeks at a time, and then you won't create anything for the next few months. Be proud of yourself because damn, you're a little ball of energy in those weeks, and that's amazing. And also accept and show love to the fact that you need some serious rest after so much creative work. That is your cycle of consistency. If you want to get better at then getting out of that so-called slump, try to work with your energy levels and emotions during these times. And do some arty things that are less taxing on you. For example, but not limited to, using that period to create a bunch of toned canvases ready for your next burst of painting. Or writing about your experience during those crazy weeks and taking photos of your art and process so you can create a series of blog posts during this downtime from the actual art making process. Whatever you do or don't do during that time, know that you're choosing it. Choose to rest or choose to play and create in a less pressured or linear way. But be in your power because you know that this is a consistent part of your creative process. So what you don't create daily or weekly for stretches of time? When you zoom out, you will no doubt see some kind of pattern happening. And in that pattern is your particular style of consistency. That style of consistency is something that I think also contributes to your art style, or art essence. I'm currently ruminating on art essences and maybe back with a future video talking about my theory on why and how your art essence is more important than your art style. So subscribe now and stay tuned for that. I've just used this one example of someone who creates a lot in a shorter period of time and then doesn't create much in the gaps in between. But there are as many different patterns of consistency as there are artists. Now that you've zoomed out and assessed yours, you can, if you choose, decide to completely overhaul your consistency style and try to start from scratch. Maybe you're determined to be a person that creates every day no matter what. Not only can you work with your natural consistency style, but you can destroy and recreate it like this too. It's possible. But remember, if someone who has never done a push-up in their life wants to be able to do 20 push-ups, they're going to have to go through phases of progression. First, they might start on the floor on their knees, or maybe even before that, they will need to stand and use a wall. Then as they gain strength, they progress to their knees. Then finally they can do 1 push-up. And now they need to build all the way up to 20. This building of a foundation takes time. This person might skip days or give up temporarily and feel like they've taken huge steps back with their progress. But even if they give up for a year, when they come back, they'll be in a better spot than when they started. They'll know the steps they have to take. They'll know correct form. They'll have more patience through the process. If you want to become a person who creates art every day, you actually already are this person. But like the push-up person, you might have started, stopped, tried, and failed at doing it. But every time you're trying, you're building momentum and you're building your foundation so that every time you try again, it gets a little bit easier. Being an artist is a lifelong journey. It's fulfilling, frustrating, and magical all at the same time. I just hope you know that you're definitely not alone when you feel like you're the only one who struggles with consistency. I can assure you, you're definitely not. I, for sure, still don't have it figured out. And this is just one way that I try to trick myself into becoming a more consistent artist. Unfortunately, there's no magic cure. There's no big red button to push that is all of a sudden just going to make you insanely consistent at making art. Just a little art making machine. But I do think that there's some fun to be had in this self-exploration of what kind of artist you are, and then pushing and testing the limits of those findings. So I'm going to leave you here. Happy arting, and I'll see you in next week's video. Okay, I love you. Bye. Oh my god, the sun.